The air in our backyard in Greenport, New York, had been buzzing with excitement. Everyone gathered around the cake. But the moment we cut into it, revealing that soft, unmistakable pink, the whole party, and honestly, my whole world, shifted. My mother-in-law, Martha, who moments before had been practically gloating with her blue balloons, just froze. Then the real storm hit. You see, I'm a few months along, and Ethan and I decided a cake would be the perfect way to reveal our baby's gender. But before we even got there, Martha showed up, clutching a massive bunch of blue balloons. She released them into the sky, announcing to everyone, that it was a boy. Just like that. As if she knew. For a second, I was actually terrified. Did she know? Did she really just ruin our surprise? But Ethan reassured me. He said the doctor had only spoken to the baker, and not even he knew yet. So, how could Martha be so sure? When we asked her, her response was something else. She said she could feel it in her heart. Look, Martha's always been a bit eccentric. I've known her for almost 5 years, and she loves being the center of attention. She's also a huge believer in manifestation and all sorts of pseudoscientific things. I never really cared. She can do what she wants, but our baby's gender reveal was absolutely not the time or place. She went on about how she'd been doing manifestation rituals and her tarot reader had hinted at it. She was convinced she was right, that it was fate. I wanted to just kick her out. But I didn't want to ruin my own party, so I bit my tongue. She even urged us to cut the cake, practically demanding we confirm what she already knew. So, we did. And the inside was pink. You know what that means. I was so incredibly happy. I've always dreamed of having a little girl. Ethan was thrilled. Everyone else was overjoyed. Everyone, except Martha. She put on this shocked face for a few seconds, then stormed out, muttering and grumbling. We chose to ignore it, not wanting to waste another moment on her dramatics. But then, a few minutes later, she marched back in and started yelling at me. Right in front of everyone. I had no idea what had happened, but suddenly she was screaming that I must have tampered with fate. That because I had been skeptical, because I didn't believe her manifestation, the universe had reversed its plan. That our baby was now cursed, and it was all my fault. My skepticism had brought doom upon my child. I wish I could tell you I'm exaggerating, but every word of it is burned into my brain. In that moment, all I wanted was to slap her across the face, just to make the nonsense stop. But somehow, I held it together. I told her she clearly wasn't in her right mind and that she needed to leave. I wouldn't have that kind of ridiculous, disturbing talk around me or my baby. She said she'd gladly leave, claiming she wanted nothing to do with a cursed baby or the woman who cursed it. She walked out, and my father-in-law, Richard, followed, apologizing for her behavior. But it was too late. The evening was already completely ruined. It's been a while since then. Most people have been kind enough to pretend it never happened, but I know it did, and I've been furious. Ethan, my husband, cut off his mom entirely. I think that's what prompted her to try and apologize. She called, I declined. Then she started texting, saying how sorry she was, how she wanted to make things right. When I didn't respond, Richard called me. He felt he owed us an explanation on Martha's behalf. He said she'd always been eccentric, but recently she'd been stranger than usual. He'd taken her to a psychiatrist, and she'd been diagnosed with BPD, bipolar disorder. He claimed she was finding it hard to come to terms with it, wasn't taking her mood stabilizers, and that's why she'd reacted that way. Honestly? I don't know if any of that's true, and frankly, it's not my problem, even if it is. What she did was unacceptable. I told Ethan I needed time and space. He suggested I at least give her a chance, but I knew I couldn't. I felt a pang of guilt, knowing about her condition, but what she did, it was just too much. I was pregnant, hormones everywhere, and I just wanted peace. I didn't think meeting her would do any good. I just needed her away from me. I understand she had reasons for her outburst, and I do feel bad about her condition, but I'm not in a place to accommodate that in my life right now. And I don't think I should have to. Ethan, bless his heart, completely understood. He said it was my call, and he'd respect whatever I decided because he didn't want me or the baby to suffer unnecessary stress. That was a huge relief. Richard, however, did not react the same way. He kept calling and texting. When I finally told him I wouldn't be meeting Martha, he called me selfish. It became obvious he didn't care about my feelings, only about the baby. He accused me of denying Martha the right to be around her grandchild during the pregnancy, a right all mother-in-laws deserve, he claimed. He even said I clearly intended to deny her the right to be around the baby once she was born, and he wouldn't allow it. It was such a strange accusation. I had no such grand plan, I just didn't want her stressing me out after what happened at the reveal. He himself admitted she wasn't mentally stable, so why would I want that around me? He insisted I show compassion. I told him he could have all my compassion and empathy, but that didn't mean I had to let her near me. I'm pregnant, I have my own stuff. This wasn't my problem. That's when he pulled out the family card. He said it was my problem now because we were family. That's where I draw the line. Throughout our 3 years of marriage, they'd never really been involved or concerned with me. They cared about Ethan, yes, but I was always an appendage. I was fine with that. I never expected them to treat me like a daughter. But suddenly, because I'm having a baby, they expect me to treat them like my own parents? To prioritize their feelings? It felt incredibly unfair. I remembered when I hurt my ankle a few months back. Ethan was on a business trip, my parents were out of town. I was in a lot of pain. I asked my in-laws if they could just grab some groceries. Martha initially agreed. I waited until 9 p.m. with a list I'd given them. Finally, I called Richard, and he casually told me they'd forgotten. A friend had come over, they got lazy, and couldn't even be bothered to call me. They didn't think it was a big deal. That's the kind of family they've always been. If they truly saw me as family then, they would have helped. So no, I'm not prioritizing their feelings now. My mental health, my pregnancy, and my baby come first. If Richard can't accept that, it's his problem. After that phone call, I muted all his notifications. If he had issues, he could take it up with Ethan. I was done. I was so grateful for Ethan's understanding. I know many women wouldn't have their husbands by their side in a situation like this. He cares for me, and he doesn't act like his family is the only thing that matters. A couple of days later, Richard showed up at our house. I'd muted him, so I wasn't expecting it. When I opened the door, he started yelling at me, saying I was disrespecting him, Ethan, and Martha, who was miserable and crying every day because I wouldn't forgive her and she feared she wouldn't see her grandbaby. He demanded I speak to Martha and reassure her. I told him no, and that he needed to leave. Ethan wasn't home, and his aggressive tone made me uncomfortable. Instead of leaving, he pulled out his phone, threatening to call Martha right there, insisting I had to talk to her. He said it was such a small thing to ask, and if I denied them even that, it would just show how horrible a person I was. The entitlement was unbelievable. He thought he could just barge into my home and order me around. I don't take that from anyone. I got so irritated. I told him I wouldn't do anything he asked, that I owed them nothing. Then I slammed the door right in his face. He hadn't been in the house, but he was on the porch. He started banging on the door, calling me disrespectful, threatening to call Ethan about my behavior. I knew I wouldn't face consequences from Ethan. I didn't even have to call him. Richard must have called him, because Ethan came home and just comforted me. He said he'd dealt with it, and that no one from his family would be bothering me again anytime soon. I assumed his dad got an earful. It's been a few weeks since. I finally learned exactly what went down. Richard called Ethan, expecting him to be on his side. But Ethan, instead, gave his father an earful for bothering me. Richard's plan completely backfired. The fight was so bad that Richard promised he and Martha wouldn't visit or speak to us, not even after the baby was born. They declared that if we ever wanted them involved, we would have to apologize for our horrible behavior. Of course, that's not happening. The past couple of weeks have been peaceful. They think they're punishing us, but it's exactly what we wanted. That peace didn't last forever though. This morning, Martha used a new email ID to message me. I'd blocked them both. I thought she'd apologize again, but no. She ranted about how she knew exactly what I was up to, how I was trying to turn her own son against her, and how I'd fail miserably once Ethan realized I wasn't good for him. Is it her mental illness? I don't know, and I don't care. She's entitled to her opinion. If she thinks her grown son is so easily manipulated, that's her problem, not mine. I know Ethan. I know he supports me enough to go against his own parents, and I'm so proud of him for that. Their denial is their burden. Honestly, they're just ensuring that after my daughter is born, they won't see her for a very long time. They've been incredibly negative, going out of their way to make me feel bad. I'm done. I will not allow them near me in the late stages of my pregnancy or after the baby arrives. And Ethan feels the exact same way. Well, it's been a couple of months since then, and last week, I went into labor. My beautiful daughter is here. Ethan and I feel like we're living in a dream. It's hard work, but every time I look at her, it all melts away. It's just wonderful. When I went into labor, only my parents, Ethan, and my sister Sarah were informed. They were the only ones I wanted around me, and that's how it went. 2 days later, we announced it on social media. I guess some nosy relative sent it to Richard and Martha, because they found out. And literally, just 2 days after I gave birth, they showed up at our house, demanding to see their granddaughter. Even though they'd vowed not to speak to us unless we apologized. Ethan refused to let them in. I was physically and emotionally exhausted, and he knew it wasn't a good idea. They did not take it kindly. They started accusing Ethan of not caring about his parents, of falling for my manipulation, of being a complete fool. They think I'm some cunning, expert manipulator trying to steal him from his family without a motive. It's absurd. Ethan shut them down by threatening to call the police when they refused to leave. So, they eventually left without seeing me or the baby. It did bring up concerns though. We don't know if they'll stop there. Their behavior has been anything but normal. And just last week, 2 months after that, they proved us right. They tried to visit again, and Ethan told them they'd only be invited in if they apologized to me first. That's when they started yelling at Ethan. And Richard. Richard slapped my husband across the face. I know he's his father, but that does not give him the right to slap a grown man. We have it on our security footage. We've decided to file for a restraining order, and we called the police that day to press charges. This was simply not acceptable. We're also considering moving to a bigger house. Honestly, it was a long time coming, and this was just the catalyst. What happened was shocking, but at least they showed their true colors. Now, the rest of the family doesn't want anything to do with my in-laws, and they won't be seeing their grandchild. I guess they sealed their own destiny. This whole ordeal has only brought Ethan and me closer together, and I'm so grateful for that. We're going to get through this. After everything, do you think we made the right choice cutting them out completely?